All right, folks. So now to a story kind of closer to home here. After Justin Trudeau announced his resignation, there has now been a temporary kind of pause on Parliament. The House of Commons won't be back until March 24th. They put a pause on this, trying to sort out what's going on with the Liberal Party, if they're going to select a new member or not. But after all that dilemma, in comes Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre made his first official address after Justin Trudeau announced his resignation, and Pierre Poilievre is calling for election, comments on U.S. tariff threat. This is from CPAC, not the conservative group in the United States. This is the cable outlet in Canada that covers the House of Commons. It's kind of like a C-SPAN. I believe it's like Canadian Parliament Access Communication Network or something like that. I think that's what it stands for. Not totally sure, but it says Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre holds a news conference in Ottawa where he reiterates his call for a federal election and takes questions from reporters about U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's tariff threats against Canada. So we know that Pierre Poilievre is obviously against Donald Trump swooping in and taking Canada as a state. We already discussed that in a previous video. We know that Pierre Poilievre is kind of going to be a force to punch back on Donald Trump as opposed to Justin Trudeau, which is kind of like a weak force, which is what I've stated throughout all of this, that we need strong forces. We need a strong leadership to deal with a persona like Donald Trump because he responds to strong people. That's what Donald Trump even said. He responds better with strong people than weak people. And if you want to deal with Mr. R the Deal, the negotiator, you need someone who can actually negotiate. And I feel like, regardless of how you feel about Pierre Poilievre, I have some disregard for him. I'm not a supporter of his. But you need someone like him, someone like his character, in response to Donald Trump. So here's what he said in the press conference.
And so, right before an election, the Liberal MPs want to elect another Justin Trudeau who has a different face. They're all Justin Trudeau. They're all just like Justin.
So he's talking about the incoming party election where they're going to select a new representative, a new party leader for the Liberal Party. And what he's stating here is that regardless of who they get in, whether it being Chrystia Freeland, whether it being Mark Carney, whether it being Dominic LeBlanc, whether it being any of these people, they're going to operate in the same playbook that Justin Trudeau did. And that's the sad part. And that's the sad part of all of this is electorally, yeah, you may be choosing a different face, but it's still the same play. It's still the same play. I've stated this before. I use the analogy of the mascot. You know, picking a prime minister, picking a president, picking a leader of a country is like the mascot. You decide whether you're the Bengals, the Wildcats, the Kodiaks, if it's my high school. You decide the logo of said school, but that doesn't determine the plays. That doesn't determine the coaching. That doesn't determine how they're going to do well, how that country is going to survive. And we know that with Justin Trudeau, for example, yeah, you picked the pretty face neoliberal, but people didn't realize what a terrible guy he was going to turn out to be, how he was going to cave right into the globalist agenda, how all this upbringing was because of people like Klaus Schwab. And so many people within the Liberal Party, so many people within even the Conservative Party, to mention the NDP, all hang their power by globalist entities like the World Economic Forum. They're all part of the Young Leaders Summit. They're all part of the upbringing to bring this kind of notion of this post-nationalist state. That's what Justin Trudeau even said when he first got elected in 2015, that he's going to turn Canada into a post-nationalist state, meaning that Canada wasn't going to be Canada. Canada was just going to be an outlet for whatever globalist regime the billionaire class wants to orchestrate it.
In the next election, I will be running against Justin Trudeau. whether his name is Justin Trudeau or his name is Chrystia Freeland or Carbon Tax Carney or Carbon Tax Clark. They will all be Justin Trudeau. They supported everything he's done, and they promise to keep doing it. And if they say otherwise, we know they're lying because they would have done so earlier. Let's go through the list. You have Carbon Tax Carney himself to this day. He's on the Liberal website as the Chief Economic Growth Advisor to Justin Trudeau. He hasn't even resigned from that position after Justin Trudeau has resigned himself as the leader. Presumably then, Carbon Tax Carney supports every single economic policy that has given us the worst decline in per capita GDP of any G7 country.
And also Mark Carney, just to add to it too. Mark Carney is one of the visionaries behind the digital currency. He's one of the biggest advocates for a digital ID, which I think that is probably why he's keeping on board, why they want to push him into this kind of power move, is because so much of the billionaire class, so much of the globalist economic stranglehold wants its citizens to be on some sort of digitalized currency and measure of surveillance. You know, we're seeing that being implemented in the UK. You're seeing implementations in Australia. No doubt Canada is following the same suit. We saw, how many videos of the Bank of Canada saying, like, what a great idea this would be. It'd be so convenient for you. So convenient that you're going to be monitored and surveilled, that a private company aligned with itself with a government entity, which is fascism, that's the definition of fascism, is going to dictate and control your finances. And we already saw implementations with Chrystia Freeland freezing bank accounts. So if they already have the potential power to do that, they're no doubtably already constructing measures to implement a way to physically seize control of your assets and your finances. And that is why someone like Mark Carney even gets the glory of fame in the liberal establishment, because he is a neoliberal global servant to the billionaire class that's going to usher this in. So here, there's an article from CTV News. Pierre Poilievre returned to Ottawa on Thursday after the holidays with a familiar demand for Justin Trudeau call a carbon tax election. Neither Trudeau's announcement that he plans to resign as Liberal leader, nor U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's recent rhetoric about his using economic force to take over Canada seemed to have swayed the Tory leader, who said in the ballot box question, and even his opponent remained the same. It's ironic we have an American president who's threatening tariffs on Canada, and we have a Canadian government that is threatening even more devastating tariffs on Canada in the form of a carbon tax, he said. Poilievre added that Trump would likely be happy to see the consumer price on carbon rise in April as scheduled, because he'll be on the phone with our trucking companies, our factories, our mines. He'll be saying, pick up your billions of dollars and move 50 kilometers south, create the jobs for Americans. Trump has threatened to impose a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods when he takes office later this month, in response to the federal government release of a $1.3 billion plan to beef up the border, but Trump has not backed down. Poilievre said the country needs a prime minister who can make the case to economic allies in the United States that tariffs will be harmful to American businesses, and that Canada has opportunities, including vast amounts of green energy to power artificial intelligence that's being developed in Silicon Valley. But when asked which allies he's speaking with in the southern border, Poilievre said, look, I'm not the prime minister. He then went on to mow down a Granny Smith apple while stating that. He said he's asking for an election so that he has a clear mandate to put our country first, to make the case to Americans. Poilievre spoke to reporters Thursday for the first time since Trudeau announced his plans to resign once the Liberal Party chooses a new leader. Trudeau also prologued Parliament on Monday, hitting pause on all debate in the House of Commons until March 24th. The federal election must be held in October, but is likely to happen in the spring instead. All opposition parties had pledged to bring down the minority government with a non-confidence vote once Parliament resumes. Poilievre, who has led Trudeau in the polls for over a year now, said no matter who leads the Liberal Party in March, he will be effectively running against Trudeau in the next election because they're all just like Justin. So, effectively, you need someone who's strong enough to go not only go after Justin Trudeau and the Justin Trudeau reign, but you need someone who's effective enough to stand guard for the people of Canada versus this kind of eroding globalist takeover of the country. And that's what all this endures. Oh, there's more of this. He singled out 3 people widely believed to be among the contenders for the top job: former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, and former BC Premier Christy Clark, referring to them as Carbon Tax Chrystia, Carbon Tax Carney, and Carbon Tax Christie. While all 3 are reported to be mulling a run for the Liberal leadership, none have formally declared their candidacy. The Liberals have yet to release detailed rules for the race, including fundraising requirements and the date for the vote. So here is Jagmeet Singh, who's had a coalition with the Liberal Party for such quite time, but now since Justin Trudeau has resigned, now he's losing his top buddy that was hoping to get him a good, pension afterwards. That was the whole point of all this. That was the whole point of propping up the Liberal establishment so he can gain some power, gain some control, and then push the election a bit back a bit so that they can get good pensions while many Canadians are suffering to pay basic necessities like groceries. Here's Jagmeet Singh says Justin Trudeau has to go. He has to resign. And because of that, all options are on the table. But he won't comment to a voting non-confidence to trigger an election. What the F is he waiting for? That's from Brett Sears, and here's the video describing it.
Why are you holding out the option to still support this government? I understand that you're saying that you might, trigger a confidence vote, but why are you still holding out the option? What is the glimmer of hope that you're seeing to possibly support the Feds or possibly support this government in some other way?
Depends on the votes. And so I want to make it very clear. Justin Trudeau has to go. He has to resign. And because of that, all options are on the table. And we'll look at each vote and we'll make a decision. But now all options are on the table.
So he just stated all options are on the table and then backtracked the most viable option, which is, hey, let's just call for an election that would ultimately get rid of Justin Trudeau. It's just amazing that these people can talk both sides of their mouths. They can, sway from one side to the other in the same sentence. And it's just utter hypocrisy. Utter hypocrisy. And given the fact that this is Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, who notoriously signed up with Justin Trudeau, notoriously did a kind of coalition to go after the Conservatives and pretend that, we're this fighting force that's going to cut back on healthcare, that's going to cut back on education. That's already happening regardless. That's the provincial decision. That's provincial governments, not the federal. But doing all this to really clamp down on the Conservatives so that they can gain power, the NDP, and also they can correlate to get higher pensions if they move the election to another date, which obviously that's not going to happen. It all backfired. So now Jagmeet Singh is going out and being like, yeah, no, I'm against Justin Trudeau again. I want all options on the table to take him down. His tyranny needs to stop. After how many years? How many years now? The NDP coalesced with Justin Trudeau, thanked him, partnered with him on certain motions, certain nefarious schemes. They all partnered together when it came to the mandates. They all partnered together to silence the peaceful protesters of the Freedom Convoy. They gathered together to applaud a Nazi twice, a Ukrainian Nazi twice. And they all gathered together to coordinate censorship because they want to smack down on dissidents by the American public. They want to clamper down on that. So here is. Oh. Okay, never mind. I don't have that video. Okay, I thought I had something else. Anyway, but there you go. So there is Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh saying all options are on the table now that Justin Trudeau has resigned. He's still remaining as temporary prime minister until they choose and select a new leader. But for Jagmeet Singh in particular, to say that all options are on the table, but not to actually start and ignite in an actual election to confirm it, just seems way too suspicious. It's way too sus, as the kids would say.